Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to sit here and talk about the Yankees 2019 offseason. I know a lot of people are excited about this offseason. A lot of people are expecting the Yankees to spend a lot of money this year. Um, I think the reason why people expect that is because the Red Sox have just currently won the World Series this year, and every time in the past that the Red Sox have won the World Series, the Yankees have spent the most money in the offseason. So for those purposes alone, I think the Yankees will be spending money. Plus, there's a lot of players out there that want to play for the Yankees that the Yankees have had interest in for a very long time. Um, there's a local pitcher from New York State that is very interested in playing for the Yankees. He's a left-handed pitcher, Patrick Corbin. So we're going to talk a little bit about him today too. Um, I think the biggest thing that people want to know is, are we going to sign Harper or are we going to sign Machado? I personally think that we're going to end up signing Bryce Harper, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more when we get deeper into this video. Um, but I think the biggest thing right now is that the Yankees are trying to focus on getting their starting rotation together, filling out a bullpen, and then after they get that done, which will probably happen in the next week or two, we'll start to see some of the bigger dominoes fall, like the Harper, the Machados, the Michael Brantleys, even Andrew McCutchen. A lot of teams are into him. There's a lot of players out there that have MVP resumes, Cy Young resumes, so this is probably the best free agent class we've had in a very long time, and some of the bigger media outlets are thinking that this is probably the best free agent class of all time, being that Machado and Harper are the two biggest fish, in the sea this year. They're 26 years old, which is very, very rare for guys that young to get into free agency. A lot of people have been talking about, teams not wanting to go 10 years on Harper or Machado. Well, if you look deep into it, the reason why they say that is because, you got the A-Rod contract, you got the Robinson Cano contract, the Albert Pujols contract, you got the Miguel Cabrera contract. But one thing to keep in mind, not one of those guys was under the age of 31 years old when they got their 10-year contract. Machado and Harper are 26. Being that they're 26, that gives them a better opportunity not only to get a 10-year deal, but maybe even a 12-year deal. You look at a guy like Machado or Harper getting a 12-year deal, it's going to end when they're 37 years old. And, for any baseball fans out there, they know that 37 is really not a super old age. A lot of guys are very productive to 35, 36 years old. But I do have a lot of updates on the free agency for the Yankees this year. One of the biggest things that I've been seeing, this is more of a media outlet, is that the Yankees aren't in on Machado anymore. That they might want Harper to play first base instead of bring Machado in. And the reason why that is because of all the antics that Machado had in the playoffs and because of his dirty play. But I truly believe that Machado is still very, very much in play for the Yankees. I've even read, through some big media outlets, that the Yankees have a deal on the table right now for Machado at 9 years, $305 million. Um, I honestly think that Machado is looking for 10, maybe 11 years. And I personally think that he's going to end up going to the Philadelphia Phillies. That's a team that's got a lot of money to spend this year, along with the Yankees. Um, I really don't see any other teams out there besides the Yankees and the Phillies that, are willing, and not only willing, but have the salary cap space or the willingness to go over the salary cap and get into that luxury cap threshold to sign these type of players. Um, the Phillies right now only have $70 million committed to their team. So that's a big reason why they're going to probably most likely sign one of these two big free agents. Um, they're also going to be in on a few other free agents too. The Yankees right now, they currently have $162 million payroll. Um, as we all know, the Yankees have been spending a lot of money for a very long time, and last year they had $191 million payroll, and the salary cap last year was 196 million. Um, this year the salary cap has gone up to 206 million. The luxury tax for this year is going to be 125 million. And with that being said, I see the Yankees going over the $206 million salary cap, but I see them staying under the $225 million salary cap. And the reason is if they were to say go to about $220 million on their salary this year, they would only get taxed about $3 million on top of that, which we all know $3 million is not too much for the Yankees. Um, Another thing to look at too is that the Yankees are buying the Yes Network back from Fox. They were only owning about 20% of the Fox network, and now they're buying that 80% back from Fox. And what I've been reading through a lot of media outlets is that it's going to be about an $8 million or $8 billion package for that TV deal. And $8 billion for 10 years, comes out to $800 million a year, which is a lot of money. The salary cap is also going to be rising in the next few years. By like 2022, the salary cap's expected to be at about $225 million. And a lot of people are wondering, how are the Yankees going to sign all these guys and have enough money to pay the baby bombers? Well, paying the baby bombers is really not an issue because in 2021-22, by the time they would have to pay these players, the Severino, Judge, Sanchez, Torres, Andahar, they're going to be having guys coming off the books like Tanaka, Ellsbury, Chapman. These are guys making, high teens, $22 million a season. So they're going to have about $60 million coming off the books in the next 3 years. And, I believe they're going to use that money to re-sign some of the baby bombers. One thing I will say is that a lot of fans are concerned about James Paxton, the pitcher we just picked up from Seattle. One thing I would say is this, is he's a guy who's similar to J.A. Happ as far as his career. Phenomenal stuff. High 90s fastball. He's got a slider, and he's got a sinker that are very, very good secondary pitches. His issue has been the injury bug. But the good thing about his injuries is he's never had any injuries on his left shoulder or his elbow. They've been abdominal strains. He's had calf strains. He's got muscle flexors that are in his abdomen that he's pulled. So he's kind of had a lot of freak accidents. He also had another injury where he was out for a month because he had an issue with his nail on his pitching finger. And obviously that would cause a lot of discomfort for any pitcher. So I'm excited about James Paxton because I believe James Paxton is going to be a number 2, number 3 type pitcher for the Yankees. He's a younger J.A. Happ. He only cost the Yankees $9 million towards the salary cap this year, so it helps them save more money to spend on guys like a Machado or a Harper. Also, the Yankees gave up their top pitching prospect, Justice Sheffield, in the deal. And a lot of people around baseball thought it was too much. I personally think that it was a great deal, and the reason why is because I believe the Yankees looked at Justice Sheffield as more of an elite left-handed pitcher coming out the bullpen. And I don't think that they believed his longevity as a starting pitcher was going to be there. So I think that they made the trade because they felt like they had an opportunity to capitalize on a pitcher that's only 30 years old. He's a guy that could help us get to a World Series next year. Justice Sheffield's a guy more. He's 2 or 3 years away from making a huge impact if he even ever was to turn out to be that type of pitcher, which most people in the Yankees front office thought that he was more of a reliever than a starter. Another thing, the Yankees made another trade today for a guy named Timmy LaCastro. He's an infielder, outfielder for the Dodgers before he was traded. He went to Ithaca College. He's a graduate from Auburn High School. I'm from Auburn, New York, so I was pretty excited to see him get traded to the Yankees. You know, anytime a local guy gets traded to the team, it's very exciting. So I think he's more of a depth piece. He's going to be in AAA this year. If anyone gets hurt, whether it be an infielder or outfielder, he'll probably be one of the first people to be called up. So you could expect him probably to play a good portion of the season, probably a quarter or a third of the season. Someone's always getting hit with the injury bug. I mean, it happens every year in every sport. It's something that's going to happen. It's the inevitable, but, you just hope that it's, no injuries that are serious or that, are detrimental to the team. So I think he's a good piece. Plus, they were able to get rid of Drew Finley, who was a pitcher that was going to have to be added to the 40-man roster. And if anyone doesn't know much about the 40-man roster, what happens is there's a lot of players that become eligible for the 40-man roster. And you'll have about maybe 5-10 guys in your minor league system that are eligible for the 40-man roster, and if you don't put them on your 40-man roster, they could get picked up in the Rule 5 draft. So basically, you lose them for nothing, and another team, even rival teams, could pick up one of your prospects, and put them on their 40-man roster, and they end up getting a good player. Steven Pierce, who's on the Red Sox, he was on the Yankees at one point in time. They didn't put him on the 40-man roster, and he ended up getting picked up and going around a few major league teams. And last year, he ended up falling with the Red Sox. He got traded there from Toronto and ended up winning the championship. Another guy that they had that they didn't put on the 40-man roster was Quintana, who is a starting pitcher now for the Chicago Cubs. Jose Quintana was in the Yankees farm system when he was 20 to 23 years old, and the Yankees ended up not putting him on the 40-man roster, and he got picked up by the Chicago White Sox. And anyone that followed him or follows baseball really close knows that he put about 4 or 5 really good seasons together for the White Sox, where he was winning 10+ games, pitching 170+ innings, mid to high 3 ERA. Decent strikeout pitcher, so they definitely missed out on that guy. So I think with the Drew Finley deal, they traded him to get a depth piece, and I think Timmy LaCastro will work out for them. I don't think he's going to be a huge impact, being that he's more of a utility guy, but, I mean, Luke Voit last year, he was a guy that wasn't a big-name guy. He was 27 years old, a journeyman. We had a struggling Greg Bird. We had Neil Walker playing some first base for us. We've even threw around the idea of having Miguel Andujar be our first baseman. So, picking up Luke Voit last year was a big pickup for the Yankees. He hit over 10 home runs. I believe it was somewhere around 12 or 13 home runs he finished with, about 30 RBIs. And he only played about 40 games for us, so he was definitely a steal at the trade deadline. Also, there's a report out right now that the New York Mets are looking to trade Noah Syndergaard. I've also have a few sources that I talk to on Twitter. A guy that's really close with the Yankees organization, and he tells me that of the 6 teams right now that are in on the Noah Syndergaard, the Yankees and the Brewers are the top 2 teams. If the Yankees were to make that deal, the Mets are looking for a few pieces to fill out the roster that could have an impact right now. So if that deal was to happen, you can expect a Miguel Andujar to be going there, a Chance Adams, maybe a Clint Frazier or Aaron Hicks. And the reason why I say Aaron Hicks is because next year, Aaron Hicks and Didi Gregorius are both free agents. And the Yankees, the reality is you can't re-sign everybody because everybody's got to get a payday. And the Yankees, they're high on Didi. He's a left-handed hitter, so he's good for the short porch at Yankee Stadium. And, he plays phenomenal defense at shortstop, and he's a fan favorite. So I really, really don't see the Yankees letting him go in free agency. I think they're going to end up giving him a 5 or a 6 year deal, $15 to $17 million. I think they're going to let Aaron Hicks walk, and the reason why I say that is because I truly believe they're going to be picking up one of these big time bats this year. And if they do that, Machado and Harper are going to be looking for $30 to $35 million a year. So if you're putting $30 to $35 million into a player, it's going to be hard to get $15 to $20 million to all these other guys. It's just not going to work out. Even for the Yankees, they're not going to have a $300 million payroll just to keep everybody. So I do think that Hicks could be traded. I don't think he necessarily will be traded this year. I think that they'll keep him for this season. But if Noah Syndergaard is to go to the Yankees in a trade, do not be surprised if Aaron Hicks gets involved in that trade. Another thing I wanted to bring up was the relief pitching. The Yankees are looking at a guy right now named Adam Ottavio. He was a relief pitcher for the Miami Marlins. He played for the New York Mets at one point. He's from the Bronx, New York, so he's a local guy. He's got a phenomenal strikeout pitch, which is his slider. They say it's one of the best in baseball. I've only watched a few of his highlights on YouTube, so I've never really watched this guy live, but he averaged over 12 strikeouts per 9 innings for his career, which is a very, very high rate. Guys that get about 12, 13 strikeouts per 9 innings in relief are guys like Andrew Miller, Chapman, Betances, Craig Kimbrell, Kenley Jansen, like big-time arms. So I think he's a very underrated guy. The Yankees do have a 3-year deal on the table right now for $24 million. I think he's going to end up accepting it. I do believe he'll be taking over David Robertson's spot in the bullpen next year. They are interested in bringing back Andrew Miller, but the Red Sox are in on Andrew Miller right now too, and I think Boston is probably going to sign him. Craig Kimbrell, their closer from last year, he's talking to the Atlanta Braves. He was originally on the Atlanta Braves before he got traded to the Red Sox. They turned him into a bunch of prospects that are helping their team out a little bit right now. No big name guys, but they had a starting pitcher and a guy who's a utility guy for them, who's come back from that trade. So I think that the Craig Kimbrell trade worked out for both sides. But I do see Craig Kimbrell going back to the Atlanta Braves this year. I just don't see the Red Sox spending a lot of money. Last year they had a $240 million payroll almost. It was $238 to be exact. And the Red Sox, they kind of were the Yankees last year, is where the Yankees kind of reset their luxury tax because they wanted to spend a lot of money this year. So I think Boston's going to lose a few pieces. They did re-sign Steve Pearce to a 1-year deal. I see Boston going after some small pitchers, more like a Gio Gonzalez. They could sign Nathan Eovaldi, who they traded for last year at right after the All-Star break. But I don't see Boston picking up any huge pieces. The only way Boston I could see getting a huge piece, like a pitcher or a hitter, would be in a trade, but they don't have a strong farm system. So I really, really don't see Boston making a lot of big moves to improve their team this year. I think they're going to fill out their roster with a few decent veteran players, but, that's about it. As far as David Robertson goes, like I said, I think David Robertson's going to find a job somewhere being a closer. Same with Zach Britton. Zach Britton's a goner. He's not coming back. David Robertson, he's kind of... It depends on what happens with Adam Ottavio. If they don't sign him back, I could see David Robertson coming back. But I see him going to maybe a National League team, like maybe the St. Louis Cardinals, or a team like that where he could be a closer. As far as starting pitching, the Yankees got 4 starters right now. They have Luis Severino, Masahiro Tanaka, CC Sabathia, and James Paxton. I've been hearing for a long time that they've been wanting to sign Patrick Corbin. Right now, they have a 5-year, $105 million deal on the table. He wants 6 years, closer to 125 million. The Yankees originally wanted to only give him about a 4-year, 80 to 90 million dollar contract, but right now it's at 5 years, 105 million. I think it's almost a slam dunk that Patrick Corbin goes to the New York Yankees. He said last year when he was playing in Yankee Stadium, he was interviewed by one of the people from Yes Network, and he told the person interviewing him that he's a lifetime Yankees fan, that his family are all Yankee fans, generations from the grandfather and the grandmother to the parents to his siblings and cousins. Everyone loves the Yankees. He's a local guy from where I live. He's from Syracuse, New York. He went to CNS High School. He's a New York guy, and a lot of times New York likes to bring in their New York guys, especially if the guy is a good player and is very interested in playing for him. Another guy that they're looking at is Dallas Keuchel. I think Dallas Keuchel is more of a guy that they're going to go after if they miss out on Corbin. I think he's more probably leaning towards maybe the Phillies or the Braves too. The Phillies and Braves are going to be very, very active in free agency. Probably the Yankees and the Phillies. And then you'll see teams like the Braves, the Dodgers, the Cardinals. Don't expect a whole lot from Cleveland or Seattle, who are contenders in the AL this year. Boston's probably not going to make too many moves. Houston, they are a very, very, very tricky team because they usually don't spend a lot of money. And they could spend money, though. Their ratings for TV has gone up. Winning a championship kind of, really, really brought a higher fan base, higher jersey sales, higher, ticket sales, more people attending their games, more people following the team. So I think that Houston could be a team that adds a few pieces here and there, but I don't think they're going to sign any of the big name guys that everybody's out there waiting to see who signs. Another guy that we had last year, J.A. Happ, that we got at the trade deadline. I've been hearing a lot that the Yankees are interested in him, and they're interested in bringing him back to have a 6-man rotation. Now, I know that sounds kind of crazy to a lot of people, a 6-man rotation, but the Yankees were actually entertaining a 6-man rotation last year because they thought that they were going to be in the running for Shohei Ohtani. And the reason why they're going to do it last year was because Ohtani was going to pitch, kind of like on every 8 to 10 days instead of the 5 days because he was the designated hitter too. But they ended up not getting him, so they ended up having a 5-man rotation. The LA Dodgers had a 6-man rotation last year, and it worked out great for them. They had Kershaw, they had Kenta Maeda, they had Walker Buehler, Hyun-Jin Ryu, they had Rich Hill, and they had another guy that they brought up. I forget his name, but they had a total of 8 guys that pitched 15 or more games for them last year for starters. So do not be surprised if the Yankees pick up a 6th guy to be a starter. Maybe not J.A. Happ, maybe more of a Gio Gonzalez or maybe like a Clay Buchholz, a guy that's a veteran that could be a bullpen, long reliever type of guy and start 10 to 15 games for the Yankees if they need someone. I think the 6-man rotation is a real thing. I think that it's going to be something that's going to be very, very big in the next couple of years. Just like last year, we seen the Tampa Bay Rays started a new trend of having the openers. They had relief pitchers starting an inning or two, and then turning the game over to the bullpen, and by the 5th inning, putting a starter in to finish out the game. And the concept of that is you're having your starter end the game, which at the end of the game is usually when the team is most likely going to win or lose a game. So having a starter who can go multiple innings, it's kind of like reverse psychology. But the trick with that is, the beginning of your game is real tricky because the chances of 4 or 5 guys being on that day is a lot harder than, one guy being on that day. So I think that the opener is going to be a big thing too. I think more teams are going to start relievers and then put more relievers in and, starting pitchers towards the end of the game. I think that's something that a lot of teams are going to go with. I don't think it necessarily will be a huge thing that's going to stay, but it's definitely something a lot of teams are willing to try and see how it works. I know Oakland tried it against the Yankees last year in the AL wildcard game. It didn't work out too well for them, but, I think it could work in the regular season. I don't think it's really much of a postseason thing. I think when you get to the postseason, you either have to have, a phenomenal offense that can score in many ways, or you have to have, a good starting four rotation, 4 guys that are 1-2 type pitchers that are going to get you 6 innings, and then you got 3 or 4 guys that can come out the bullpen and just get outs. Like the bullpen the Yankees had last year was phenomenal, but the starters just couldn't get to the 6th inning. It was always the 3rd or the 4th inning, and then you're bringing guys in and you're down 5 runs. So I definitely think that if the Yankees could add some of these pitchers and get possibly a 6-man rotation, that'll give them a good chance of having a lot of success next year. Another thing is the Yankees are currently in the process of trading Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray is making $9 million this year. One thing that's been being floated around is the idea of the Yankees trading Sonny Gray to the Cincinnati Reds for Scooter Gennett. Scooter Gennett is a corner outfielder. He also can play the infield. He's very, very good player. He hustles. He plays with passion. He's basically, a Brett Gardner, but a utility player, steals bases, plays D, runs out every play. He's running hard. He's just a baller. It's the type of guy you want on your team. So if the Yankees can somehow trade Scooter Gennett or Sonny Gray for Scooter Gennett, that would be a great, great pickup for them. Obviously, I don't think it would be a 1-for-1. I think the Yankees would have to add a few prospects. Sonny Gray just wouldn't get it done. He's not enough. He's coming off a rough year. So I think if the Yankees were to package maybe 1 or 2 pretty good prospects with Sonny Gray, they could definitely get that trade done. If the Yankees don't manage to get Scooter Gennett, there's other guys out there. They're definitely going to trade Sonny Gray. I know the Milwaukee Brewers and the Oakland Athletics are teams that are looking to pick him up as well. Sonny Gray is a goner. It's just a matter of where and when. And I think that'll happen probably in the next week. I think their starting pitcher that they end up signing, or starting pitchers they end up signing, will probably happen in the next 2 weeks. And I believe that Harper will be signing with the Yankees sometime around Christmas. One thing I will point out is that the Yankees said right off the bat that their main focus was starting pitching and their bullpen. And then, after that, they'll assess basically the rest of the roster and see if there's any upgrades or players that they add to the team that can make the team better. Now, when free agency first started, Bryce Harper's agent, Scott Boras, came out and said that Bryce Harper wouldn't be signing until, mid-December. And to me, it's just very funny because that would kind of line him up to be negotiating with a team like the Yankees, because at that point in time, they would have all their roster filled out. And if they were looking to add a guy like Harper or Machado, then, they would know how much money they have to spend. And, they wouldn't have to overpay for a guy like Harper or Machado, because it wouldn't be a necessity. It'd be more of a luxury, to add them guys. They had the best, offense last year as far as hitting home runs. They're number two in runs scored, and they're about, I think they're 14th last year in batting average, and I think they could probably cut down a little bit on the strikeouts. Try to get their batting average up a little bit as a team. But for the most part, last year they had a great offense. It was really just the pitching that got us. It was the starting pitching, to be precise. Their bullpen was pretty good. Their bullpen was up and down at times, but you know, for the majority of the year, the bullpen was pretty tough to score on. So I think that adding the starting pitcher is a mandatory must. But now that they have James Paxton, and they're negotiating with these other pitchers like Corbin and Keuchel and Jay Happ, and even the possibility of a Noah Syndergaard trade, that's still very possible. I think that's more unlikely than them signing someone else, but it's still something that's on the table right now. If they don't get Scooter Gennett in a trade, they're going to be looking for other guys to possibly fill out the roster. Now, the key is this. If the Yankees sign Manny Machado, they don't really need to pick up other players. And that's why Manny Machado is honestly a better fit for the Yankees. But the Yankees are very right-handed. And if you look at the history of the Yankees, 2009, you go back to 2000, you go back to the late 90s, when they won 4 championships in 5 years. It was always, left 3 or 4 lefties, a switch hitter, and 3 or 4 righties, or a couple lefties, a couple switch hitters, a couple righties. Right now, they got a lot of right-handed hitters, and if they add Machado, they're adding, more right-handed hitters. And, one of their best hitters is out till July, Didi, and, he's a left-handed hitter, so I believe that it's more of a need to add a left-handed hitter. Scooter Gennett's a left-handed hitter, so if they were to swing a deal and get him, that would very, very much help their team. Another guy people have been talking about is Daniel Murphy, but according to sources that I've talked to, Daniel Murphy is not a guy that's on their radar. They're more interested in bringing back Adeiny Hechavarria, who they got last year in the trade. I think if they sign Harper, you can expect a Hechavarria, possibly Scooter Gennett if they get him in a trade. And the other name I'm hearing is Marwin Gonzalez. Now, Marwin Gonzalez is very, very interesting because he's a guy, if you could trade for him, or if you could sign him right now, you don't have to worry about trading for a Scooter Gennett. You don't have to worry about signing a Harper or Machado. You could just sign him, and you could kind of let everybody outbid themselves and see where Machado and Harper are at the very end. The Yankees have been downplaying their interest in these big free agents, but I wouldn't be surprised if they strike a deal with them because they said that they are out on Mark Teixeira because they spent so much money on Sabathia and A.J. Burnett that year, and they traded for Nick Swisher. So they had a guy for first base, Nick Swisher, but they still went out and got Teixeira. And that year, a lot of people don't remember that their outfield, they had Melky Cabrera, Brett Gardner, they had Johnny Damon, and they had Xavier Nady, and they had Nick Swisher. And they already had 4 outfielders. They had Nady, they had Damon, they had Gardner, and they had Cabrera. So they had 4 outfielders, and their designated hitter was Matsui, who was an outfielder. So they had 5 outfielders on the roster. Nick Swisher, they traded for him to be the first baseman. Xavier Nady ended up getting hurt that year and tore the ligament in his elbow, and he had to get Tommy John surgery. So Nick Swisher ended up being the outfielder, and Mark Teixeira, they signed to an 8-year, $180 million contract to be their first baseman. The Yankees are loaded with outfielders right now, and everyone's saying, oh, no way they get Harper, no way they get Harper. Well, Harper could be a DH. He's willing to play first base. He could play in left and right field. And remember, Aaron Hicks and Brett Gardner are both free agents next year. So, these are guys that, may not be on the team next year. So you're really just looking at having a loaded roster and extra pieces for 2019. But in 2020, Bryce Harper fits perfectly into the roster and the dynamic of that team. Um, Another thing I want to bring up is that they have a guy, Estevan Florio, who's an outfielder in Double A. Um, Probably 2020-21, he's going to be coming up. He's a lefty. He plays great defense in center field. He gets triples. He gets doubles galore. The guy's fast. He stole 40 and 50 bases a year. So he's a guy that's definitely on the upswing that people should be looking out for. But I just wanted to fill you guys in with a lot of the updates and rumors going on right now for the Yankees. It's definitely an exciting off season, and there's definitely a lot more that's going to be going on. This is my first video, and I'm definitely looking forward to doing more. And it was great to spend this time sharing all this with everybody. Hopefully, I gave some people some information that they could read up on and follow, because as Yankee fans, we want to know what's going on with our team, and sometimes we get different mixed signals from different media outlets, so it's hard to really tell who's going where and what's going on. But this is that time of year. It's about to be winter meetings in about 2 weeks. It'll be winter meetings on December 8th. That's when most of the big time free agents start signing. So around December 8th, mark that on your calendar. December 8th, they're having winter meetings, the GMs, and that's going to be the most likely time where you see some of these big name hitters and pitchers signing with teams. So it's going to definitely be a very exciting time, and it was fun having you guys. So thank you very much, and have a nice night.